Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to talk about the movies. Welcome to episode 14 of the Movie Proposal Podcast. I am Skye Jitani, co-host of the Phil Vischer podcast, author, speaker, ordained pastor. I don't know what other hats I wear. And with me, as always, is Josh Lindsay.
Hey, it's just me. Thanks.
Just Josh. We're glad you're back with us for another episode. We're a little behind, I think, on talking about Oscar-nominated movies, but we have another one this week that is going to be the main focus of our discussion, even though we're past the Oscars and the huge snafu that happened there. Hopefully we should talk about that. Error-free here. But let's start with something old. I say this every time, but in case you're new, we do this as a wedding-themed movie review podcast. So we talk about something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. So Josh, do you have a movie recommendation from the past, something old that you want everyone to reconsider or watch again?
Yes. So mine's from 1977.
Okay. You're going way back.
Yeah. Okay. You didn't pick yours from the 70s, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay. All right. Close Encounters of a Third Kind.
Oh, yeah. That came to mind immediately when I was watching this movie we're going to review.
Yes. I love that one. I remember being a kid and, watching on VHS and with mom and dad, and when they would let you watch a kind of a traditionally adult movie, it kind of felt like a big deal. Mm-hmm. So this is one of my favorite films. It's a Spielberg film, Richard Dreyfuss, Terry Garr. And this is where Richard Dreyfuss, he has a family. It's like the 70s. He becomes obsessed with something. He doesn't know what it is. And he just starts creating these mounds. Like there's a scene where he's piling on mashed potatoes, like an obscene amount of mashed potatoes. And he doesn't know why, but he's being called to this place to have a third kind encounter, I guess you'd call it, with the aliens. And great film, a film I'm sure inspired Stranger Things.
Now that film has gotten a lot of criticism for its ending. Like it doesn't quite...
Close Encounters?
Yeah, because it doesn't quite pay off. Like it's... You know what I mean?
Because you don't get to spend time with the aliens?
Yeah, because they build up this alien encounter and you never really encounter them.
Yeah, but I like that because usually it's a disappointment when you find out,
So leave them wanting more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All these backstories, we need more mystery. It was more about the man that Richard Dreyfuss played and his journey than it was about really meeting the aliens.
Fair enough. I didn't care for the movie nearly as much as you did, and that's that will then lead us into our discussion of our main feature. My pick for a movie from the past is the movie we're going to review later is really dependent on a very significant twist at the end. So it made me think about my favorite movie with a big twist at the end, and that is The Usual Suspects.
Oh, yes.
I think it may also be the only film directed by Bryan Singer that I really like.
The only one?
Yeah, I do not care for his movies. Even he did like X-Men and X2 and Superman Returns.
Well, that wasn't good, but some of his X-Men are okay.
The Future's Past.
I just don't care for them. I mean, they're not all horrible, but I'm not a big fan. But The Usual Suspects is one of my all-time favorite movies. And it's got a massive twist at the end that if you've never seen the movie before, I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's Kevin Spacey is one of the main characters in it. Benicio del Toro is in it, and you can almost understand none of his dialogue, which makes him that much more interesting.
Right.
It's kind of a whodunit and just brilliantly written. Definitely not for families. It's I don't know if it's rated R or PG-13.
Oh, it's got to be R.
Definitely R.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. For this violent, it's a violent movie, but really, really just it's a movie with a twist that absolutely nails it. And that's what I loved about that movie.
One of the things I love about that too, which is one of the same reasons I loved Arrival, we're going to talk about, is that you see almost everything in front of you, but you don't connect the dots until the very end. And it just once they connect the dots for you, everything you saw and was told to you, it all makes sense. But you saw it in a different light while you were watching the film.
Right. So do you want to transition into our...
Yeah,
actually, okay.
Because I spoiled it. So.
All right. No, it's fine. So our something new this week, we're talking about Arrival, which was nominated for Best Picture. But that doesn't mean much anymore, I don't think, because there's so many different films that are nominated every year.
Only 8 or is it
But
10?
it used to be like 4 or 5.
Well, it used to be 5, but they think they bumped it up to 8 or 10.
Right, because they wanted to capture more audience for the Oscars by having a greater diversity of movies, and they chose Arrival. Fine. Josh,
I wonder if you like it.
Can you give folks a summary of the movie in case they're unfamiliar with it?
Okay, so this came out last year. The little summary is when 12 mysterious spacecraft appear around the world, linguist Professor Louise Banks is tasked with interpreting the language of the apparent alien visitors. And so it stars Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner, Forrest Whitaker. This was the one that I just could never find time to see. And it got such high ratings. I mean, I think it got like 97%.
Is it really that high?
Oh, yeah. It's in the high 90s.
Jason, can you look that up?
He doesn't believe me.
No, I'm just curious because...
On Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it was very popular. It was actually...
94.
94. Okay. Yeah. Well, not only was it nominated for Best Picture, it was nominated for 8 Oscars.
Including?
Well, I don't know, but it won.
Best Picture, cinematography, directing, film editing, production design, sound editing, sound mixing.
Wow.
And it won for sound editing, everyone's favorite. Mm-hmm. Which I mean,
okay.
I didn't see Arrival, but it sounded good.
It did.
All right. So, what's your proposal? For the
I
film?
propose that Arrival is a sociologist dream come true.
Wow. Okay.
This goes back to my childhood. My father taught sociology, so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're going to dive deep into
So
Josh's
father issues here.
It continues. Yes,
We talked about another movie recently where you connected deeply on a father level. Oh, we meant the
Hell or High Water?
Field of Dreams and Hell or High Water, right? Yeah, both of those movies you brought up.
The
father.
one, because he was. I related to his feelings as a father, not his choices as a father. I want to reemphasize that.
All right, we don't have to rehash that. Go back and listen to a previous episode. My proposal is that I propose that Arrival is a film that completely depends on a major twist at the end, and I felt like it didn't deliver.
You felt like that's your proposal?
Yeah, my satisfaction with this movie all came down to did they stick the landing, which is the twist at the end. And I just didn't feel like they did it because I didn't care.
Well, that makes a big difference because you didn't care about the characters.
Right. They going back to Usual Suspects, right? It's a dramatically character-driven movie despite it being about, crooks and all that. But these characters are so brilliantly developed. So when there's the twist at the end, you're like, oh my goodness, that is awesome. And this one, the characters they're brilliant actors, Forrest Whitaker and Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. They're all good actors, but it just felt so flat and two-dimensional and frankly boring that when the twist came at the end, I was kind of like, I didn't care.
So you felt it was set up for this big twist?
Oh, yeah.
Did you go in hearing there was a twist?
No, I had no idea there was a twist.
Okay.
No.
Because I didn't have that reaction at all. I wasn't really, to me, it wasn't about the twist so much as her revelation at the end. The question she asks and how she answers it.
Okay, so we should let you know there's spoilers here. We're going
to ruin the movie for you.
We're going to ruin the movie
if you
for
haven't seen
it. But, okay, before we get into that, though, for me, if you're going to do an alien movie, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there has to be some payoff with the aliens, right? And for the aliens in this movie, first of all, they nickname them Abbott and Costello. You are building expectations for me just with that. And then they're just so boring. And their design, they look like those aliens from The Simpsons. Was it Crag and because they're this multi-tentacled blobs.
It's true.
And you're like, but they're so not interesting.
It's right there.
Yes, that's them.
You should Google these when you get a chance.
Kang and Kodos.
Yeah, Kang and Kodos. And you're like, okay, did you watch The Simpsons when you came up with these? You could have made them anything you wanted to. And then, the big gift that they've come to bring humanity is language without verb tenses. Right?
Well, it's a little more than that.
Well, no, the argument is that, and there's actually scientific and neurological truth to this, that language shapes our minds. that the way we communicate, there's been evidence, for example, when literacy became high after the printing press was invented, it actually transformed the way human brains are wired because we became a verbal culture or a literary culture rather than just a verbal culture, right? And some argue that same thing is happening now with our kids because they're so visual with all the devices they use that's actually transforming brain chemistry. There's evidence for that. So the argument that is made in the movie is human language is linear.
Correct.
With a past, present, and future.
Yep.
Because we use verb tenses. And the language of these aliens is cyclical and has no beginning or end. It just kind of is. And so you're like, okay, if you start using our language, it will change the way you think so that, you can reach a higher
So it did rewire her brain.
Yeah.
But that she could actually see, basically, another way to say it is she could see into the future. If you continue to think of a linear path, she could see.
Well, what is past, present, and future all became simultaneous.
Yes.
Right.
So she could see it, but others couldn't.
Right.
That's a little more significant than verb tense.
But first of all, that's total BS. That if I just stopped using past and future verb tense, I can see the future.
Well, I'm sure it was a little more in depth than that.
But that's what I mean. Is it tried to have this huge payoff, and I kept going, really? Because throughout the movie, from the very beginning of the movie, there are these what you think are flashback scenes.
Right. Which that's the brilliant. Okay, this is part of the brilliance to me. But go ahead and explain it.
So there are these flashback scenes where Amy Adams is recalling a child that you assume she had in the past. And this child grew to, I don't know, 8, 9, 12 years old, something like that, and died of cancer. And so you assume that she's carrying the grief with her of a life that used to be full of joy and now is kind of grieving the losses she's been through. And the twist at the end of the movie is that those flashbacks aren't flashbacks. They're actually foreshadowing what is going to happen in her future.
Right.
And you go, that doesn't make me feel better. Like if the story was about a woman who is grieving the loss of her child to cancer, and then there's some resolution or healing of that grief, you go, wow, that's amazing. Instead, you find out this is a story about a woman who's about to experience the worst thing you could possibly imagine. Jay, that's great. I'm so wonderful to know that.
Yes. Well, just because a film doesn't have a happy ending doesn't mean it's a terrible film.
No, it just means I didn't like it.
Okay.
I'm not saying. I think it was a well-made movie.
Oh.
I just didn't find it entertaining.
When it ended, my wife got up, which ironically, or interestingly, I should say, she pretty much agrees. She's in line with you with movies,
I'm
right?
glad to know. She's a smart woman.
Because she stood up and she's like, yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't like it. And so I started to...
I got it.
Okay, all right.
I
fine.
didn't like it.
All right. She didn't get it in the sense that she bought into it and enjoyed it.
Right.
And actually, yeah, she's like, well, what did I miss? And so I started to explain what I got out of it.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, and on the last Phil Vischer podcast, I heard that Lisa Vischer cried at the end of that film.
Okay.
Yeah, which made me feel better because when I started explaining this to my wife, I had
I probably teared up a little bit too because I realized this poor woman now has to know what she's going into and the death of her child that's going to come down the pipe.
Well, this goes even deeper for me. So my father's a sociologist, and dinner conversations growing up were very entertaining, very interesting because my dad would just drop these bombs of, he'd say these things and everyone for a reaction, and then it would turn into a big debate, big discussion. It was fun. It was great. It was healthy. It was wonderful. But he would just say these crazy things, ask these crazy questions. And he did he'd have conversations like, well, do you think we're alone? Are there aliens out there? Right. And he'd talk about communication. And one of the things he talked about, so my dad is not a Christian. And so I grew up as a Christian. I remember being in high school or college. I had this conversation with my parents. So, and my dad asked that question, why would a loving God create, his children in a world knowing in advance that they are going to suffer? And my response is my brilliant response I had in high school or college, whatever, was like, well, Dad, you and Mom knew very well that if you had children, you would be bringing us into a world where you knew we would suffer at some level, have pain at some level, yet you did it anyway. Now, as I'm saying this, I make my mom start crying and she's upset. I'm like, oh, I'm horrible.
And your dad's like, well, I don't want to put it in your dad's mouth, but there's a lot of reason people have children, which doesn't include forethought.
Well, that's true. But they had forethought. They wanted to have children like we did and so forth. And so to me, she asked that question at the very end, would you knowing the rest of your life, what was going to, from beginning to end, would you change anything? And she asked that to her future husband, and her answer was no. Now she knew she was going to have a daughter who was going to die, and you got to experience that throughout the film, that quote grief she experienced of having the loss of a child. And what makes it even more significant and carry more weight is that she was going to enter into it anyway. And that was powerful to me, because to me, that was kind of like tying into the guy question, well, why, how would you live your life differently? Would you change it? The idea that if you could change it, is that saying that person's life, it's better off that person didn't exist? It's better off that is the purpose of life to avoid pain? It brings up these questions that are very heavy and very weighty. And the way it was expressed, where I went from, I thought that was a memory, to, oh, that's not a memory. She's about to enter into that, and she's going to do it anyway, because it's not about avoiding pain, and it is about that relationship with the child. And to me, that was the crux of it.
Fair enough.
You like it better now, don't you?
No, I don't. Because for me, it didn't have an emotional payoff. Because for example, if the whole movie, the script and the characterization was one about somebody wrestling with, do I choose pain or do I not? And then at the end, she comes to a place of going, I'm going to choose this pain anyway. Then I'd be like, okay, there's the payoff. But the whole time you think she's overcome. You're not set up for that decision. And there's no indication that she has a choice. What choice does she have? There's no evidence that there's any free will in this.
Oh, that she could actually choose.
Right. If she was brought to a point of actually being able to determine the future, that the aliens say, you go down this road and this will be your experience, and you won't have this daughter and you won't experience the grief of losing her, or you go down this road and you will have her and you will experience the grief, and she has to make the decision and she chose that. I'd be like, okay, that's interesting, but that doesn't happen. There's no indication that she has any power over what's going to happen in the future. It's like she's fated to do this. It was very depressing to me, because it isn't like Jesus choosing to go to the cross. It was, there are no exit ramps. This is your destiny. You have no choice. So you might as well just accept it. That's what it felt like more to me.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Point taken.
So, well, I mean, you were reading into it that she has a choice.
No, not so much.
I was reading into it that she didn't.
No,
we're both making
it wasn't
assumptions.
so much about the choice. It was just the question that was being asked. Like, I agree with you. It was not clear whether she could do anything about it or not, but it was just that the question was asked.
Yeah.
Would you change it? And to me, it's irrelevant whether you could or couldn't do anything about it. Her answer was still yes.
Here's another dark side, though. She isn't just making that decision for herself.
Right, I understand.
She's making it for Jeremy Renner.
And the child.
And the child.
Yeah.
So she may know what the future holds and wants and chooses it, but by connecting with him and marrying him and having this child, she's also forcing him to go through that grief. In a way, well, that's one way to look at it. But another way is that he got to experience the joys of having a child. Cool, great. But then there's the meta narrative, though. Here is these aliens show up to give us a language that will help us.
No, help them.
Help who?
That was the whole point. The subplot of the story was the aliens came to give the humans this language so they could understand it, because 3,000 years from now, the aliens were going to need the humans' help. And so they needed to bring this language to them.
I didn't get that.
Yeah.
I didn't find it all that interesting, to be completely honest with you. I thought that the design of the film was not super interesting. I thought the characters were flat. I was super disappointed with the aliens. So it just didn't pay off for me. I mean, I don't know. I will not watch this movie again. I'm not going to sit down with it again and go, wow, that was intriguing. I really want to dig deeper. And Amy Adams, I think she's great in most films I've seen her in. I felt like I just wanted to give her some Prozac in this one and kind of just.
Well, the film was the lighting, everything was dark.
It was depressing.
It was
the
depressing.
whole movie is depressing, and even the aliens, like they're in this misty, foggy, barren spaceship, and it's like, I don't know. The whole thing was just depressing.
Well, it was interesting though.
And then you end with, oh, great, now I got to go through again the daughter.
Well, I know, but
cancer.
I need to see it again because at the end, I feel like the lighting changed at the end. Like her memories, like her visualization of her marriage with Jeremy Renner, going forward, and with their child. There were images of them outside when it was sunny, and it was like it was very different lighting. And I'm sure that was done on purpose, but I would need to see it again. But I think that was going from being in darkness into light, as going from not understanding to more understanding, and as difficult as it might be, but she was, quote, enlightened, in this film. So,
well, sometimes enlightenment's a
that should have been your proposal.
All right.
Do I have to bleep that?
No, you can. I don't know. Whatever. That's my summary of Buddhism. I spent a semester studying Buddhism. It was very interesting. Okay.
Before we move on, did you guys know it's actually an adaptation of a short story?
That's a great transition, Jason.
Story of your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you found an article about this. Is our something borrowed?
So this is from The Verge. It's an article titled "How the Short Story That Inspired Arrival Helps Us Interpret the Film's Major Twist." Subtitle: Living with the Power of Choice.
Okay, so this is going to help me understand what I did not apparently grasp.
Right, which you didn't read.
I didn't know you had to do reading before seeing the movie.
No, the article. I sent you the article well in advance.
Whatever. I was angry. I didn't want to see it.
So just a quote from it says, the story is about acceptance, understanding our life's choices, and living as if any one moment were as valuable or meaningful as the next. And
so carpe diem, seize the day, live in the present. Is that the idea?
That's part of it. I mean, because you asked the question, what if you could? Change the past, change the future, and we ask these questions, and I think what we get to is, well, we can't, and that's not even the point. Mm-hmm. The point is accepting, where we're at, and what that this is valuable. Like having a child who, albeit may go through something tragic, the experience of having that child is important, even though it's like the idea of this memory of loss is so painful, I want to get rid of it. That's not the point, is to eliminate that. It's the point of accepting the whole kit and caboodle.
And there's a wonderful little book, and I've mentioned it, I think, on the podcast, but not this podcast, but Phil's podcast before, by Jacques Philippe, called Interior Freedom. And the basic argument of the book is that real freedom comes when you learn to choose that which you did not choose.
Say that again?
Freedom comes when you learn to choose what you did not choose.
Okay.
So your child gets ill, right? In the case of this film, no one would choose that.
Right.
But when you choose that, like when you decide I'm going to accept the circumstance I find myself in and there discover God's grace for me in the midst of that, instead of fighting against it all the time, to
asking why,
right, or poor me, or self-pity, or all that, but to choose what you did not choose. I think there's a great truth to that, and a real wisdom in it. So I don't disagree with that. I think this film was a poor vehicle for that message. I didn't get that message from this film.
Yeah.
So I think the lesson you're taking from it is a good one. It's true. I just didn't see that in this movie so much.
If something, look, I'm not a crier, and it was when I had this conversation with my wife, my 12-year-old daughter was happened to be sitting next to us. So this is the first time I cried in front of my kids, which they're always saying, "Does Dad cry? I never see him cry." And so it was a neat opportunity to share this memory of this conversation about God and why things happen with my daughter there and that kind of stuff. But it struck a nerve with me. And I would be curious for viewers and listeners out there because it obviously struck a nerve with other people. I mean, not to say that you're wrong on your evaluation, but a lot of people loved it, and I'd love to hear more about why. Look, I don't know if Lisa Vischer that well, but she cried at it too. So there you go. That's.
I don't know. I think whenever you put a movie where an innocent child is suffering from cancer and dies, I got teary-eyed at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy when Peter Quill's mother dies. You remember that, right? The opening. I mean, and the poor kid is watching his mother flatline.
Right.
I mean, it's horrible. So death, cancer, innocent.
It was a little more than just that.
I'm just saying, there's that. But then you throw some aliens in, you go, ooh,
There were aliens in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a far more entertaining movie. So, I mean, okay, I get it. I get the kind of, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe the short story is a far more poignant and better vehicle for that message than the movie was.
Yeah, well, as usually the book is always better. So
right. All right, are we on to something
blue?
Blue. This is what we share, something that we encountered recently that blew our minds or that blew chunks.
You want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I got a blow mind. I blew my mind.
Okay, let's hear it.
I think it's been a while since I've had a blow chunks.
Yeah, I've really been avoiding just stupid stuff lately.
Yeah.
So
I stumbled across this series on Netflix that I started watching, and I thought it was really good, really well done. So it's a documentary series. I think it's 7 or 8 episodes only.
Can I guess?
What?
Is it Abstract?
Yes. Yes. So good. It is so good. So Abstract is each hour-long episode takes you into the life of an artist. So a graphic artist or a typographer, a car designer, an architect. And it just shows you kind of how they go about their craft, how they think and design, and it's beautifully illustrated, and the cinematography. And if you're into design or aesthetics or art, you got to watch the series.
Agreed.
Have you seen it?
Just the first episode, but as soon, I don't know. I was bored. I couldn't find anything to watch on Netflix, and I came across this. I'm like, oh, what the heck?
Yeah,
it was great.
It's really well done.
Yeah.
So totally recommend Abstract. I loved it. I hope there's more.
I don't know anything about it. I just randomly came across it. So
I thought it was fantastic.
All right. My blew my mind was we just finished the Netflix series, The Crown.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it.
Have you seen it?
Oh, yeah.
See, The Crown to me is what I had hoped Downton Abbey was going to be. Did you watch Downton Abbey?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I really liked the first season of Downton Abbey. I've watched every other season with my wife after that, but I was disappointed with every season after season 1 because it was very much like a cheesy soap opera, but they use those characters in that time frame.
I wonder, did they intend for there to be more than one season when they started? Because season 1 ends and it's like so well just encapsulated.
Right.
And you wonder, then it was a huge hit and they go like, oh man, we got to come up with more seasons.
And it felt like that.
Yeah, it did a little.
Where The Crown, movie quality, great acting, great script. And one of the nice things about it was very interesting. It was very entertaining. It was engaging. But I wasn't stressed. It wasn't dark. It wasn't super depressing. It was fascinating.
Well, it's history, so you kind of know she's not going to get assassinated, right? That kind of stuff, because it's history.
And it's not cheesy soap opera type stuff, although there's those elements of it,
right?
But I highly recommend. It did not look appealing to me at all. But then when the Golden Globes came out, I thought, oh, we should check it out. Yeah,
I really enjoyed it, and apparently it's been renewed, and they're going to do 5 more seasons?
5?
The rumor I heard, maybe it's not a rumor, maybe it's confirmed, but the thing I heard was they're doing 1 season for every decade of the Queen's reign.
Wow.
So this first season was like the first 10 years roughly. And then they go on from there. So I don't know what that looks like.
Well, I have never had any interest in royalty, the British monarchy, that kind of stuff until now.
And now you're all in?
Yeah, as we're watching it, we're like Googling these characters. Well, what happened to so-and-so? They don't get married after all, right?
Yeah. Well, it is very, very well done. It's intriguing. And John Lithgow as Winston Churchill, who would have thought?
Right, I would not have guessed.
But he did a great job. I thought he was fantastic. So I totally disagree with you on Arrival and completely agree with you on The Crown.
All right.
That was tons of fun. I can't wait for the next season to come out. And Netflix is just hitting it out of the park. I mean, they've got so many great shows that it's kind of like Pixar. You wonder when they're going to jump the shark, or Marvel. There's so many great Netflix shows now that it's hard to believe they have one hit after another. All right.
Actually, if you would allow me, I actually have a blue chunks.
You have a blue? All right.
We need a blue chunk.
What blue chunks?
Last night, I made the mistake of seeing John Wick 2.
What?
I was so excited for John Wick 2.
I never
John
saw
Wick
the
1.
first one.
Have you seen?
Oh yeah, I thought it was great.
Did you see the second one?
No, I thought it would be good.
I thought so too. I was so hyped.
Did it get good reviews?
It's getting phenomenal reviews.
So what was so bad?
Yeah.
It's like they took everything that was good about the first one and they're like, okay, let's blow it up and make it a little bit more unrealistic. And it was just like so much of just like there was no rest. It was just action scene, action scene, action scene. And there were like little moments of rest, little moments of fun in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
None in this. I don't know. It just didn't.
Did it wear you out?
Yeah. I went with 5 people. All of us loved the first one. Every single one of us walked out disappointed.
Yeah, and what's interesting though is like, you know, the first one is lots of violence. I mean, little rest, you know, and it's a stupid plot, but it's great. Like, I don't know why I
Like
it.
Kill Bill.
I didn't see Kill Bill.
Because there's a very simple plot. It's just all action scenes.
Yeah,
right?
there's more plot in Kill Bill than there is in this.
That's saying something.
Yeah, it's just it starts out, stuff happens to the main character. He's upset that his dog died and someone stole his car, so he's going to exact revenge.
Like,
That's John Wick.
For his
number-
dog in a car?
Yeah.
That's the
the
plot.
number of people that die in that film is
It's astronomical.
it's like record breaking, you know, yeah.
All right.
But there's these lines in the first one that really set it up is that John is a man of focus. He will do what he wants, you know, that sort of thing. And so then he's focused on getting revenge and he does it. And it makes sense. In this, it was just like, well, he doesn't really want to do it, but he's doing it. And it's just kind of.
So they diluted the character's strength.
It felt like they gutted a lot of the first one. It
All
wasn't
right.
good. It wasn't
So
good.
don't see John Wick 2.
But yeah, if you get a chance, if you're in a good mood for good action, shoot 'em up.
It's my
John Wick.
favorite action movie. Is John Wick 1.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait,
I love the choreography.
over Die Hard?
I haven't seen Die Hard.
You must now remain silent until you see Die Hard.
Oh, so we need to screen better in the future.
Seriously. All right. Well, thank you guys again for listening for another episode. Go to iTunes, give us reviews. Your feedback helps other people find the podcast. Give us your thoughts on Arrival, on John Wick 2, on The Crown, on Abstract, on Usual Suspects, on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And Josh, any closing remarks?
Yeah, just a couple things. Reminder, subscribe to the podcast, give a review. And then I forgot to put this out there. You can find me at JQ Lindsay, Lindsay with an A. That's my Twitter handle. So,
All right.
JQ Lindsay.
JQ Lindsay. Thanks, guys. Until next time, you can kiss this podcast goodbye.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. And like that,